We have an Alienware TactX keyboard and headset, valued at $170. So, better than 2 more add-on claims.
Yes!
Right. So what we're going to try here, and it's going to be the first person to raise their hand. But let me finish. All right, and then you have to have something to show me here. I want a homemade or handmade piece of landmark swag. Somebody's gentleman right here was the first person I saw a hand go up. So let's make sure he has something, otherwise we'll go to the next person. Me took yours? Okay.
All right, Bobby. All right, Bob.
It's a business postcard, is what it was, but it does have a landmark image on it. I have to give him that. It counts.
Yeah. Doubles as a hat.
Yeah. Almost done. Almost done. We have an Alienware TactX keyboard and headset, valued at $170. So, better than 2 more add-on claims.
Yes!
Right. So what we're going to try here, and it's going to be the first person to raise their hand. But let me finish. All right, and then you have to have something to show me here. I want a homemade or handmade piece of landmark swag. Gentleman right here was the first person I saw a hand go up. So let's make sure he has something, otherwise we'll go to the next person. Me took yours? Okay.
All right, Bobby. All right, Bob.
It's a business postcard, is what it was, but it does have a landmark image on it. I have to give him that. It counts.
Yeah. Doubles as a hat.
Yeah. Almost done.
And a lot of stuff, but we didn't really want you to have to tear down your existing claims in order to be able to build new stuff. So we're going to add more add-on claims. But basically, it's going to be you'll be able to have 5 add-on claims to a single primary if you want to, or split them between your existing primaries. And that'll be the start. We'll add more later, but that's what we're going to do now. So you can do a 3x2, I think, which is a lot cooler than it is now. So anyway, Merry Christmas.
Awesome. Thank you.
Well, he took the fun stuff, but I'm going to get the expensive stuff. So, so there was a question, we'll clarify. You will have 2 primaries and 5 add-ons for a total of 7 claims to distribute however you want, because that was a question that Colette was just making sure that she understood. So in case there's any.
So, welcome everyone to Building Tools in the Future. I've met a bunch of you out here throughout the course of the show already, and I told you a little bit about what's coming. In this panel, we are going to talk about the future of the building tools, what's coming down the pipe. It starts off with things in the near term, and it goes deeper into the future as we go into the panel. Bear with me for 1 minute, if you will, to make sure that everything works when I click this button. There we go. Awesome. So, this panel is about what is and what might be coming in the future of the building tools. Some of the stuff we're going to talk about is already in progress today. And some of it is theoretical. We'll try to call that out as we roll forward. Everything we discuss here is a feature that we either think could be better than it currently is, or something that we think is going to be needed as we continue to work on what's next. As a reminder for everyone, it's our goal to improve upon the genre of building games in general. And to do that, we do not wish to make a complex 3D modeling program like Maya or any of its ilk. To be clear, this is always intended to be a game rather than an application. And to that end, we always try to apply the rule that a tool or feature that we put in the game be easy to learn, but challenging to master, so that the people who consider themselves master builders today, the people who unravel the secrets of the game, still have something to chew on, something that is meaningful, but that a 10-year-old child who's very interested in the game coming from another building game, or anyone here who doesn't currently consider themselves a master builder, finds it accessible when they're working with our tools. And that's incredibly important because those tools are how we are creating Landmark and how we are going to create EverQuest next. There are no other tools that will become a part of that world, save the ones that we collectively use and create, and what we talk about today. So, it's time for us to update the UI. There's a lot of things about the current UI that we like, but it could take up a lot less space. It should also be genre agnostic, because as you know, Landmark isn't simply a fantasy-themed game. When designing those improvements, we looked at a number of sources that we felt kind of exemplified the goals that we had in mind. These design ideas influence us, and generally it's because they're familiar, clean and simple, and very easy to read. So, the straightforward approach and simplicity keeps the emphasis on the game world itself, right? We want to keep eyes up, not eyes on the interface, right? We want the viewer not mired down by what they're seeing in the interface. We want him immersed in the game, and UI needs to be as transparent as humanly possible. So that's a goal that we're trying to engineer as we move forward. So, this hotbar, which is greatly expanded here, so please don't panic and think that it's going to take up all your screen space. I zoomed it in really, really far. This, in general, is a rough concept that meets our goals. I'm going to be showing a lot more of this interface and other pieces of it later. But first I wanted to mention a very important part of Landmark development. It's kind of helped shape our design of the UI and the building tools going forward. It's kind of relevant to a lot of the people that I've already talked to so far. That is the fact that Landmark and EQN are being openly developed with our players, as everyone here knows. No one we're aware of is actually working on a game which contains the tools to make the game itself, and where those tools are a primary component of gameplay, right? It is an unprecedented thing as far as we're currently aware. So, while SOELive is certainly the place to create a game like that, like EverQuest, we expect that there's going to be many things that we, both players and developers, are going to collectively learn during this process. Everyone that I've talked to here over the course of the show so far, we've kind of shared that realization where we are iterating on everything that we're creating here, and both the players and the developers are learning as we move forward. Because this is effectively an unprecedented thing, we know that we're going to have a lot to learn. There's going to be emergent behaviors and emergent technology that arises from what we're working on. So, first, it's pretty important to define the term. Now, what we're going to talk about, voxel matrix, this is not a word that we made up as developers. It's not an intent that Dave, or Darren, or Terry, or Steve, or Rosie and I ever engineered into the system that we were creating. It's kind of an example of how the players are creating the game alongside us. We didn't make the voxelmancers, we just created a game world where they had an opportunity to exist. We didn't provide a definition or make up that word. That was created by players, created and defined by players. And right now, as we said before, it's not easy to understand voxelmancy, and we would like that to change. So, it is too arcane. This is the definition of voxelmancer as provided by a player. When I asked the question, very few people raised their hands and said that they considered themselves voxelmancers. We know that it's not easy, and we would like that to change. And we're going to be talking about that here in
Good.
a couple of different ways.
Awesome.
So, effectively, voxelmancy is an arcane craft. Our goal isn't to remove it from the game world or destroy it. Our goal is to demystify it. So, right now, voxelmancers, kind of like the Jedis from the launch of Star Wars Galaxies, they've invested tons of time to learn the secrets of the game, right? They've shared those with the community, but right now they're incredibly rare. Part of the awe surrounding them kind of comes from the how did they do that mentality, right? We're aiming for more of the Jedi experience from a game like The Force Unleashed, where everyone starts off with awesome powers, they're easy to use, and you can immediately do really cool looking stuff. Although, of course, we want there to be a challenge for people as they move forward, as they learn. So, we don't want the barriers to be the engine itself. We want them to be your imagination. We love the immersion elements of Landmark that we've seen so far, and the amazing things that players have been able to create, and how they've educated everyone within the community in those new techniques that have been discovered, both by videos, even people on the development team like Emily that have worked on demystification videos, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about how we want the game itself to help you demystify these things. We want everyone who wants to be able to be a master builder to have a clear path to success. So one way we want to improve the game is to create a mobile interface. It's all about bringing the power of the voxel to the people. Now, this is shrunk down to approximately how big it would be in a game, let's just say. When I click it again, it should expand. Now, what this is about a dynamic UI based on a currently selected and active mode of tool. Everything's clickable. When you choose a tool, the shortcuts that are associated with that tool can't get lost. And all the tool functionality displays for every selection. So the days of random keys scattered around the keyboard or a particular key that most people aren't familiar with being forgotten should go away. All of those conceptually awkward things, like the dance you have to play between cab and tilde to cycle through your rotations and orientations, those things should go away as well. Or if they don't, they should be clearly defined in an interface like the one you see here today. Just for example, how many people know what happens when you have a prop on your cursor and you press the B button?
Wow, that's less than I thought.
So don't be embarrassed. The reason why you shouldn't be embarrassed is that there were a lot of people on our development team who did not know what happens when you press that button. And it kind of got called out because at one point in time when I was working my presentation, I just turned around and kind of yelled at the room, how many people know what P does with the prop button? It makes the prop either stand straight up, like a lamp post, or follow the terrain based on the normal, basically the point that comes out of any slope on terrain. So if you have like a little desert flower and you want it to follow the terrain really nicely, you don't have to do any work orienting it. You just press P, you toggle it, and then that plant will follow the terrain, and you can place it and be done. It can really speed you up if that's the kind of work that you're doing. And this is a perfect example of why the interface has to evolve and why it has to be better, and why we think this modality is a great direction for it to go. So, we're adding in a bar that shows you what works while you're in each specific mode of the game. You can do some really cool stuff, and we don't want you to have to remember what those things are each time you switch between tools.
You should click through when you're talking.
I should click through. When I'm on a roll, I forget to click. So, if Dave had a microphone, he would want me to remind you that all the stuff that I just showed you, the interface itself, particularly when it's blown up, if you're a master builder, you know all that stuff, you can just hide it. So it's not going to sit there and take up a bunch of your screen real estate if you already know all those things, right? So there'll just be a little drop down or a little drag down like there is for the claim window, for instance. So, on to the element tree. As you guys know, the old element tray got really crowded and overly complicated. So we went back to the drawing board on that as well. In addition to the fact that it'll only appear now when you're using the tool that makes use of material, we also changed the layout. We don't want to waste space while we try to show you all the categories and resources in addition to the specific material you try to select. So our initial mentality of speediness being king has kind of been traded in favor of accuracy. So as you recall, the initial design was based on navigation being entirely clickless. Just moused over it as you move through. We're now going to show you an iconic list of breadcrumbs so that you can easily move either forward or backward through the tree with a click. And it won't take up so much space. So the fact that I have it expanded here on the screen, think of it in the size of the icons that are below it, it too will be smaller. You should be able to expand it and contract it, but that's something that you'll be able to do at your own discretion. So, next thing, shapes. Simply put, we want more shapes. More easily definable shapes in a library that you can readily navigate. It's possible to create a lot of shapes using the tools or quote-unquote tools that you have now, it's still a pain in the keystroke. So we want to add things like columns, cones, and pyramids. We don't want to overwhelm you with the shapes like a box of Legos all mismatched. So things like the categories associated with the materials would also be available here. Searchable, taggable, so on and so forth. It shouldn't feel like you're digging through a box of Legos for shapes or looking on a mystical voxel wall that some other master builder organized according to his own workflow, right? You should be able to find these things, and they should be ready to hand within the sea of possibilities.
By the way, that in Jefflandia is the normal spelling of the word common.
One of the other things we recently decided that we really wanted to do was have collectible shapes, which means that like cave chests and monster loot and things like that, you can actually find shapes out there in the world. And this is even goes so far as to extend to templates. So all right. So one of the things that we want to do is to create a set of basic templates, like a really super smooth set of circles that range in a wide variety of ranges that we give away to everybody when they start the game. As soon as they make their claim, they get a whole set of these templates so that things are easier, like arches and things like that. Well, then we can also have advanced templates that are more complicated shapes or really cool elements or something like that we can actually drop as loot. So they're instead of items and stuff like that, like swords and armor and things being the only loot that's out there, you can also find these other things that are useful to builders. And it's one of the ways that we get players to want to deal with each other, because builders won't necessarily want to go down into deep caves to be able to find these things, but the adrenaline seekers want to go down there and find them. And when they find something that's useful to the builders, well, that's when trades happen. And that's the kind of social gameplay that we want to start embracing.
And you've already started the process of talking to people in the community about the potential templates that they might find valuable.
Yeah, sorry about not following through on that. After the show, I'll get back into the emails, and if anyone of you are in the room that I was talking to, it'll start up again right after.
So it is definitely on his radar and mine, and we will be following through. So, the thing that's really important to realize about the mobile interface is not just going to be how you play the game through the tools. It literally works for everything. So if we put something in the game you intend to interact with, it's going to be used in the mobile interface, including with weapons. Now, the interface that you see right here shows left click for attack and control for alt fire. It's not going to be like that. It's going to be right click for alt fire. But my heart was old and could get it updated in time for the presentation. Just wanted you to know. So you'll hear the facts in the upcoming comment class, but they'll make it clear it's left click later. So, as Dave said, we wanted people to get rolling and creating sooner. So we're going to start the beginner out with some starter templates, just as Dave described, circles and other basics, things of that nature. And we'll be working with the community to gather them together. Now, this is a kind of cool thing to show you. This was the origin of the element tray in our prototype engine. Back then, you placed these voxels by hand doing a slash command and used the eyedropper and things to switch back and forth between the materials. You ran back to your palette that you had created like this when you needed to change what was on the cursor. And you see, like, on the right-hand side there's some voxels that look soft. It's because back then, we had smoothness associated with the materials themselves. So, for instance, dirt had a smoothness value. When you placed a voxel of dirt, it was a lump, not a cube. And when you placed it next to a cube, it kind of made a little ring. It's a pretty interesting situation. This was one of Dave's element trays that he emailed out to me like 2 years ago. I had to dig through my email to find it. So, this is literally the very first voxel wall. It's not just the little material picker that you saw before. It's also all of the shapes that we had available at the time. So as our tray evolved and got more complex, laying down shapes ahead of time sped up building. Dave not only would create these, but he would lay all the voxel materials out, the shape materials in numerical order, so that whenever the artist added new shapes or new materials, they would just auto-magically appear in his voxel wall, which was pretty cool. And once again, so nowadays, players make their own palettes, as you see here. One of the things we want to do with the new interface is include that sort of functionality. So as I showed you the shape picker and the material picker, so also would I like you to have a palette that you're able to create, allowing you to gather props, materials, and shapes all together in one palette that you can name and save off and call up whenever you need it. So if you're doing a dark elf build, or a Karen build, or a dwarf build, or you're working with organic materials, you have different palettes saved off accordingly. You just open them up, and they're there either on the side of your interface, or right above your hotbar, for you to do exactly what that builder wanted to do when he created that poem. We think that would be very helpful, because even in our prototype engine, we were using the same sort of approach. Expect that to happen in the future. In addition, based on our efforts in the workshop and our existing plans, we know that you guys need more materials, more colors. You need various colors of marble. You need lapis. You need malachite, so on and so forth. I just wanted you to know that between crafting and harvesting, we are aware that you're going to want to have a full spectrum of the different requisite colors and materials so that you can continue to use your imagination and build all the stuff that is humanly possible. All that stuff is either going to be surfaced through the workshop or as part of our existing plans in the future. And we know that something that people have been requesting a lot are fabrics. That request has not gone ignored. I wanted to call it out specifically because it's so clear. The message is received. You guys need fabrics. The days of the rubicite ottoman have got to go away. And my favorite, the sapphire bedspread. Yes, and amaranthine bedspread. It's time to move on. You guys need actual. So, no, not frozen. It's made of glass. So beyond stone, bricks, and wood, and all the stuff that we know you need, special materials are highly desirable. Stuff like glass. That is, I think, a landmark of landmarks that somebody selected, one of our programmers selected, and turned to glass. Transparent materials just added. Started with glass. On the way are ice blocks, and I left this in. There's always room, even in a screenshot, for jello. That's true. But I left it in here for a very important reason, because I wanted you to think about the potential of having materials in various colors, transparencies, what have you, for use in your builds, right? It's not for me to dictate the extents and limits of your imagination. I know that if given a transparent deep blue material and a spectrum of similar materials, that you guys will find use for that stuff. So, it's on the list. So, props. We interact with you guys in one of two ways, primarily right now. in determining how to create new props for the game. One of those is the prop list on Reddit, where we take our internal list that Emily helped compile, and we add to it props, the props that players have upvoted and posted their ideas about, and made suggestions and pivots back and forth on.
And I'd like to say that it's not just me, but in our experience with our other games that have housing systems, EP1 and EP2, we've learned already so much from you guys about what you want that you have already been helping us build this game before you even do it.
Very true. The other path that we get this information from is our workshop forums, where players suggest props or request props that they know will help them create a cooler build for whatever race is being focused on at the time, whether it's a competition or just part of a regular workshop. We've gotten great suggestions from both of these avenues. We've already seen a lot of cool props here in the keynote. Things like movers, elevators, platforms, splinters, and teleporters. But there are more prop types that I just wanted to mention that, just to let you know that we're aware of them and we've been thinking about them and you requested them. So, things like editable signs that you can attach text and create lore for your builds. Locking doors so you can keep out the riffraff. Stay out my plane, stay out of my tower, here, etc., etc. So the other thing that I want you to think about, and again, this talks to the content creator of the future. Consider the potential of interactive props like the movers and platforming props that you've seen so far, like the flinger that we've debuted here at SOELive. Imagine the power of those items when you start putting them in dungeons and track gameplay. It's that sort of interactive prop that will have a significant effect on moment-to-moment gameplay in Landmark and EverQuest Next. And this is the very tip of that iceberg. The most important things that we're going to talk about today is the game system props. Going forward, all PvP and PvE game controls that exist in Landmark and EQN are going to be accessed and edited through the placement and use of those game system props. This makes the system very familiar and straightforward to builders. So what you learn today, or 2 weeks when these are released, will be relevant to you throughout your career as a content creator. The system is designed with the future in mind. Storybricks content is going to be controlled and interacted with using those game system props, so the future AI capabilities of the game are already taken into account in this plan. This is the avenue through which it will be accessed. The feature will be a key part of the gateway to game content manipulation and creation in Landmark and EQN. Liquids. So, as you guys know, we're trying to create a fully featured and dynamic world. So, recently we introduced oceans and swimming. That was the first pass of liquids in our world. The second pass was placeable water blocks. Third phase is going to be underwater biome that matches all the stuff of various kinds. So you have plants and the appropriate materials to make it a realistic underwater organic scene. And
scuba gear.
Next, beyond that, will be rivers, streams, and lakes that actually integrate with the landmark geometry for a much more rich and believable geography in the world. And as you can imagine, all that stuff is going to be necessary as we build more out. Now, to learn about the steps beyond, I know you're very interested in what the additional phase of water will be, like dynamic water, dynamic flowing water. I want you to join us in the tech panel, because Steve's going to talk about that stuff, and he's going to show you that stuff as well.
And
I'm very excited.
That's at 4 o'clock today.
Yes. So I'll be there. Please be there if you're interested. This is going to be awesome. So, we know you guys are going to need to make terrain. Editing terrain in Landmark is a must-have. But certainly to create all of NORAD, the large and detailed world that we've been talking to you guys about, we're going to need to shape large areas of terrain and quickly generate organic results. They might include the ability to do things like flatten. We need to level a hill to place a home or a castle. Average out terrain, which is very useful for creating roads in any sort of organic situation. And a tennis ball or ball tool to push and pull terrain, to raise and lower, so that you can quickly create like streams, riverbeds, and mountains. Now, this is a very, very exciting thing that I've already talked to several of you about, because you've been asking related questions, and that's publishing. We know that you guys want to see things looking better at a distance, and we know that you want to build bigger things. To accomplish this, there will eventually be a publishing process that results in a better level of detail at distance, so that you can see things farther away at a higher fidelity than you can right now. And so,
Woo!
now, it has multiple potential benefits. Things like mobs, monsters, NPCs being able to cheaply pad around your creations. So if you want to have guards, if you want to place content, things of that nature. The approach is also important so you can see those things like large city features, like what we have in the screenshot here at a distance. We know that you guys want that stuff and we know that you need it. We want it too. One thing that I wanted to be clear about was that the process isn't going to change how you work on your creations in the game today. They're going to look no different than they do today. They'll be assembled, they're going to behave no different than they do today until you publish and we process them, at which point in time they will look better. No more difficult, nothing more to it than that. They just look better from farther away. And that should allow us to do things like create larger pieces of geometry like the one you see in the screenshot. So, and now we're going, awesome. As Dave reminded me, we're going to cover it more in the tech panel. So there's more to do, more to talk about, more specific details. Very cool technology. So, another cool feature that we want to talk about is the ability to create and edit volumes like areas of fog, right?
And we've seen what you do with fog in our other games, and we can't wait to see what you do in Landmark.
Seriously. We know that it's going to be driven off a modality of a selection tool. And think about the possibilities. Passable fog, solid fog, putting in poison or other effects like gravity. And even more importantly, indestructibility. If you build a dungeon, you don't want people just taking a pulverizer and tunneling right to the boss and getting the treasure and walking out. So you might create volumes of indestructibility, or you might create volumes of great difficulty to destroy, right? Where the block has lots of difficulties, things of that nature. And here is what almost everyone has been talking to me about this time around. It's the last thing that I want to discuss with you. An in-game tool for creating voxel shapes. The picture we have here is just a representation of a voxel. It's not a concept for a tool. It's just a screenshot of something that someone put online, actually. It's the building tool that at this point is only theoretical. It is certainly the most far future item that we're talking about here today. But it would allow the user to create individual voxel shapes on the fly, like you do when you create microvoxels and you manipulate voxels, and save them to a directory or a template, or to make a shape and put it in your shape library, and possibly trade it with people. It would only be available to advanced builders, no question about that. It's not something that we would club the noob over the head with, straightforward, right? It's something for those people who spend a lot of time in the game. Many master builders have requested it, and I think it might go a long way to demystifying the process of building for people, and fulfilling our ultimate goal of placing the power of the voxel in everyone's hands. And that is building in the future. Thank you, everyone.
Woo!
So